A touch of boxing for you, because Lawrence Okolie defended his WBO cruiserweight title, but it was indeed a bit of a scrappy points win over David Light at Manchester's AO Arena on Saturday night. How do we come out of this? What are we thinking about Okolie? As in, next up for him is, I'm not so sure, Fight Disciples host and top boxing pundit Nick Peet joins us live. Nick, were you impressed in any way? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, boys. No, of course I wasn't impressed. It was a very poor performance. It was a very flat night, and unfortunately, Lawrence Okolie looked like he's gone backwards. Now, listen, he's had a tough 13 months. He's had a very acrimonious split with Eddie Hearn. He's moved away from the zone and gone back to Sky Sport. He's been inactive for a long time, and it was his first fight with Sugar Hill Stewart. So I'm trying to, playing devil's advocate here and give him as much support as I can. But he looked very ordinary. He looked like he's gone back to the old punch and grab style of Okolie, which turned a lot of fans off when he was at domestic level. Listen, but also, again, I'll throw him another bone. It's all about the dance partner. And David Light, the New Zealander who went 20-0, got himself in position to fight for a world title, came to Britain and did absolutely nothing for 12 rounds. We've got to point the finger at him as well. What a terrible world title contender he was.
Yeah, I mean, he was described as a mere journeyman on Saturday night. That's exactly what he looked like, to be honest, Nick.
He did, the unfortunate thing is, okay, the guy's, he's fringe top 20, but he has won the fights that would allow him to be paraded out by the WBO. And I hate talking about these individual boxing organizations by name because they're all as bad as each other, but it shows you what the problem is with boxing. The WBO presented this guy like he was the #1 contender, so in their eyes, the second best cruiserweight on the planet after their champion Lawrence Okolie. My goodness, he probably wasn't the second best cruiserweight in the Manchester Arena on Saturday night. He was awful.
Simon, I know you back Ben Shalom, the promoter, a lot, but did he not drop the ball somewhat on Saturday night? I mean, this one misfired. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, it wasn't just the Okolie fight. There seemed to be a bit of a flat feel to the whole event.
Yeah, I think a lot of fight fans at home, like myself, sitting on the armchair, at the fortunate position to be able to flick over channels and be able to go and check Frank Warren's show out on BT Sport, where the atmosphere was incredible. And
it was better.
Yeah, he got a Fight of the Year contender, and the main event with Heaney is one of the biggest ticket sellers in British boxing. So the comparisons were easy to draw. But let's not, come away from the fact that on paper, the show in Manchester, the Sky show, Ben Shalom's show, was a better fight. That was a proper world title fight on paper. But in reality, David Light was awful, and Okolie would never got out of second gear.
Hence it was flat. So, I mean, whichever way you look at it, Simon, not the best night for Ben, not the best night for boxing.
But I mean, Nick's point is well made. On paper, the fights look to have resonance, and the fact they didn't is disappointing. And necessarily, Ben will have to review that and look at it and do better. But I mean, Lawrence Okolie hasn't fought for a year. If you thought he was going to go back into a fight after a year against a slightly more dangerous opponent, then you're probably slightly unrealistic.
I mean, Eddie Hearn warned us last week when he was in here with us that Okolie would not pull up trees in this fight come the weekend.
That's fine. And of course, Okolie's come back and made a load of observations about Eddie Hearn. We don't need to get into that particular battle. We can make the argument that, Anthony Joshua's coming back against a fighter that's not even ranked inside the top 20 heavyweights. But we are where we are. Okolie was, as Nick says, back to something that we thought we maybe had seen the last of. And not particularly exciting. What I'm excited by is the fact he's won the fight, and what I'm really interested in is all roads leading to Richard Riakporhe fighting Lawrence Okolie, because I think that will be a fight that Lawrence Okolie will be forced to fight in.
Yeah, I suppose he did what he had to do, Nick. He won.
Yeah, of course, and that's the bottom line at the end of the day. And I think there is a lot more to come from Okolie, don't get me wrong. I thought we'd turn the corner with him, and I think Sugar Hill Stewart will bring out a new version of Lawrence Okolie when they have a little bit more time together. But what I would do is, again, I thought David Light was a very poor challenger, but I would turn this Riakporhe fight around quick. There's a lot of noise about Okolie now saying, oh, wait a minute, Riakporhe's way too good for this guy. And no, that's not true. Riakporhe's never fought at world level before. Okolie is world level. But this is the time now for Ben to jump on the noise, somewhat negativity about Okolie, and go, okay, then let's find out who the best cruiserweight in Britain is. Nick, get this world title fight on.
I think it was worrying though, Nick. I watched the fight as well. Okolie, you expected him to change gear, and he didn't seem to have the resources and the talent to be able to turn it on. And he's talking about a new trainer,
mindset.
But you have to show respect when these guys going into the ring, Nick. I'm a bit getting angry here listening to you say that David Light was bang average. Listen, he did really well. He was durable, he was tough, and he stayed in there. Yes, he should be being knocked over, but that's a different story. I don't think we should be taking anything away from his contribution in that fight.
I think the thing is, Martin, when you're 20-0 in your career, when you've been to America, when you've won eliminator fights, when you finally get the opportunity to fight for a world title, and you follow the champion around for 12 rounds, and you quite convincingly you lose pretty much every one of those rounds.
That was his level, though, wasn't it?
But at no point you switch it up. At no point you go for it. At some point, David Light should have just gone, you know what? I may as well go out on my shield than lose a unanimous decision.
I
may as well throw out at him.
A lot of the listeners this lunchtime are agreeing with you, Nate. This Kelvin in Chichester, this was turgid. Riatpur would dismantle Okolie based on that performance. Well, that remains to be seen. It doesn't seem, Nick, as if we're just days away from AJ returning to the ring, but we are. Not a lot of noise yet. That will increase in the next few days. He fights Saturday night. But where's your head with that one?
Listen, now it's here. Now, I've spoken a lot about the level of opponents. Hey, if AJ needs to rebuild against a guy of this caliber, that's fine. But a lot of the noise going into this fight has been, but Jermaine Franklin almost beat Dillian Whyte. That's been the selling point. So don't let him smash up Jermaine Franklin and then try and sell me a Dillian Whyte fight. Because you're telling me Jermaine Franklin, Dillian Whyte are on the same level. So as when he devours Jermaine Franklin this weekend at the O2, and I think he will. It's a happy stomping ground for AJ. I think AJ, half motivated, gets this guy out of there inside 6 rounds. Then the narrative shouldn't be, now we're going to go and do Dillian Whyte, because this is the same level apparently. So I want to see him go back into the top 10. I want to see him come back in to the fray, because AJ, when he's got his tail up, when he's confident, when he's knocking people over, he's a competitor at the end of the day, and I like that about AJ. Yeah. It's kind of like, you know what, just let him fight. Stop making it political. Just get him in there and let him fight. I hope he gets rid of Franklin style on Saturday night, gets the microphone and says, right, where's the Gypsy King? Let's make that fight next. And if he asks for it, I'll tell you what, it'll happen.
Oh, I'd like to think so. That's what we need. Nick's right, Simon. He does a job in Franklin, then go big next. Because at the moment, there's big pressure on these promoters to get it right. Because... well, we saw what happened with Usyk Fury, dare I ask?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more in the camp that I'd like to see him I would like him to be fighting Dillian Whyte now in this fight, because I think Dillian Whyte was unimpressive in his last fight against the opponent that Anthony Joshua has now got to face. He was very unimpressive and found his level against Tyson Fury. He was completely not in that fight at any time. And I'd prefer to see Anthony fighting Dillian Whyte now. I understand why Eddie's got him in there, and I think Nick is absolutely right. I have no interest in seeing him beat Franklin, which I understand is a tune-up fight, get him back into the right mindset, and then go and fight Dillian Whyte. I think Nick is absolutely right. But Eddie's made his position clear. He's going to have a fight here. All roads are going to lead to Dillian Whyte, and he's going to have a shot at a big name at the end of the year. Eddie Hearn's already said that, isn't he?
Well, we're only interested in big ones. Joe Joyce now has thrown his hat into the ring to fight Tyson Fury next. You would see Nick claiming it would be a very easy fight to make. Would it be?
I don't see why not. He's fighting Zhang in a couple of weeks at the Copper Box, 2 weeks away. I was with Joe Joyce just 2 weeks ago myself in Las Vegas. I dropped in on his training camp and spent the day with him, and he's in a real good place mentally, and he knows where he is in the pecking order. He's not alongside Usyk and Fury. But listen, as Joe himself has said, if you can't do the Usyk fight, there's no reason whatsoever why this fight can't be made. So let's make this fight instead. He won't be talking about rematch clauses or anything else. Joe Joyce knows I'm the B side against Tyson Fury. But tell you what, give me the opportunity, I'll show the world I'm the A side. Why not? These are the fights we need to see. We don't need to see anybody treading water. I couldn't think of anything worse now as Tyson Fury fighting somebody the level of Jermaine Franklin or Otto Wallen. Let's make the big fights. Come on, let's find out who the best heavyweight in the world is.
Nick Peet, well said. Couldn't agree with you more after that shambles last week.